the hardship. I didn't get the impression that any calls were going to help with that, and what could be the short notice and the way she described it whatsoever. So that was the state's point is well taken there. And frankly, the state's position with regard to her knowledge of the case and current opinions and impressions is well taken. The state's motion is granted as far as number 170. We'll step up. Look at their list, so this will be a short break. We'll let you know when you're ready. Also, council probably want to address, if there reaches that cutoff, what we do with those others as far as. Yes, sir.
what I think we've agreed upon with the court's permission and consent is, given the fact that the next person on the list is 171 who has no issue, that would raise us to a number of acceptable jurors at this point to 84. What we would propose, and given the fact there's 2 or 3 in addition that don't have any problems in the next 10 or so, we would propose to go for a little longer to get up to 90 and then stop and accept that for the next session of general session is what we would request.
All right, so you want to continue to plow forward. Now, does that mean that those individuals in this third panel who did not raise their hand for any hardship or anything, that they would also be returned?
Well, we're contemplating that the ones that will encounter in the very near future would be on our list just like the other people have been.
Well,
are you talking about somebody like, for example, 240, let's say, didn't raise his hand?
No, let's talk what you're contemplating doing, because you say you want to go you want to go forward, and that there may be some people that didn't indicate a hardship or knowledge. Somehow they would be included in your numbers, but then those others beyond where you finish, who did not indicate a hardship or knowledge, would not be included. Is that what you're suggesting?
Judge, we were thinking that those people could be held in reserve just in case. But what we were thinking is to just get a number of 90, which is somewhat of a compromise from what our first positions were. And we thought we could perhaps get a jury with that. We wanted to hold some people in reserve, and probably the most logical people to hold in reserve. The ones that didn't raise their hand for those issues, but I don't think we discussed that completely.
Under the circumstance, we may be holding them all in reserve,
Maybe.
with instructions to check back after 5 tomorrow to see if they're to report on Friday.
Right, you can do that, Judge. That's fine.
You know, but I mean, we're talking about how to do it and be considerate of their time, at the same time meet our requirement here. I mean, I don't have a problem with it, if that's your suggestion, proceeding until you, quote, reach 90. Councilor, confident that 90 is going to be a sufficient number, because you've given me numbers that, well, I need at least 100, you know, I could do with 80.
Judge, at this point, of course, it's a guesstimate.
I understand, well, and we're trying to make the best estimate of that.
An alternate, I believe, Judge, may be to go to a specific time with the panel that we have, and then perhaps plug in the difference in terms of, say, we're at 88, and there's 2 other people down the list that have made no indication of hardship or knowledge, and plug them in to reach 90.
I'm hearing from the state and defense that that you'd like to continue until you, quote, reach 90, and that you'd like to have 90 come back, that you recognize that we'll continue with the general voir dire tomorrow when we have everybody back at 9 o'clock, that we'll have a better picture at the end of the day whether we need to bring some more people back for Friday. And I would take it that I probably have to advise all of those past the 90 to call in after 5 tomorrow and see if their number is identified as one that's required to come in Friday morning at 9 o'clock. Is that acceptable?
That's acceptable to the defense, Judge.
Yes, sir.
All right. Where are we on the number then at this point? The way you've calculated it?
172.
No, I understand that part.
We're at 84, Judge.
84.
$172 indicates hardship. Sir, they're going to ask you some questions. I'd ask you to speak up in a strong voice so we can hear you up here, okay?
Acknowledged.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah.
You indicated earlier this afternoon that service on this jury would cause a hardship. Could you explain for us, please?
To clarify, I do not drive. Therefore, for me to arrive here, I either need to take a bus, which requires 90 minutes to get here on a timely manner, or I must pay for a vehicle to get here, either through a taxi service or the newer Lyft or Uber services. Those services, for the record, cost me an average of $17 per trip to arrive.
Okay. Do you have any friends or associates that could bring you?
Negative.
Okay. May I ask, is it just personal choice that you don't drive, or is there any difficulty in driving for you?
I can't afford a vehicle.
I see. Okay. Have you been able to, how have you been getting to court in this week?
This week I paid for 2 rides by a Uber, which cost an average of $18, and 1 ride by a Lyft, which is $16, resulting in an average of $17 per trip.
Okay. Do you lose income from work while you're here?
Currently, I am being paid by my employer. I am paid for up to 5 days of jury duty. Beyond that, I am not paid by my employer.
Okay. What type of financial hardship would that present for you?
I'm going to backtrack. Could I ask you to clarify the question, please?
Oh, certainly. Are you the sole support of yourself?
Negative. I share income with a roommate. We split the bills evenly, 50-50.
Okay. What type of financial effect would being on the jury and having to pay for transportation and not receiving compensation for most of the 3-week period cause you?
That would be rather difficult because that's a very large drop in my income to do so.
Okay. Would that type of difficulty affect your ability to pay attention and focus on the evidence in the case?
Negative.
Okay. If you were selected as a juror, with us even knowing how it's going to impact you financially, do you think that's going to affect your ability to serve fairly and impartially as a juror if you're chosen?
Negative. It should not affect that.
Okay. Thank you. Nothing further.
Mr. Trent.
Judge, I have no questions for Mr. Moore.
Thank you, sir. You may step out. Please exit the courtroom.
No motion can stay.
No motion, Judge.
$173, knowledge. Okay, sir, you can have a seat. They're going to ask you a few questions. I'd ask you to speak up in a strong voice so we can hear you. Okay?
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, sir. Earlier, you indicated that you had some information or knowledge about this case. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Is that from talking to folks or from the media?
No, I faintly recall about when it happened that I saw it in the TVT. And the only reason I recalled it was because they mentioned Colonel. Other than that, I just only vaguely remember reading about the case.
Do you remember anything recently from
No,
those?
since I didn't even know what it was about until you mentioned Colonel, and I said, oh, that was like 2 years ago, and I don't remember anything other than that.
Do you remember the judge providing a synopsis to the jury or a summary of the case?
Yes.
Do you remember anything from that? Was it one report that you saw?
Yeah, it was just, the TVT, the free paper.
Sure.
Only thing at work, and I read it, and sometimes I read it and I don't, and I just recall reading it, and he said, if you know anything, that's all I remember, so I have to follow instructions.
I understand, thank you. Do you recall any other details from that report that was in addition to what Judge Battle said, or was different?
No, just remember it was 2 kids and the colonel and the wife, that's all I remember.
Did you see any photographic images of the
No.
defendant?
No.
Or any video of the
No,
defendant?
I didn't see it, and it was just read it and forgot about it.
Did you draw any conclusions or opinions as to the defendant's guilt or innocence as a result of what you saw?
No.
Can you give Ms. Schenecker the constitutional right of her presumption of innocence?
Yes.
And can you hold the state of Florida to proving her guilt by evidence in court beyond and to the exclusion of a reasonable doubt?
Yes.
Is there anything about your exposure to the TBT report that you think would prevent you from being fair or impartial?
I don't think so.
Is there any doubt?
No. I mean, I would, if I was in that place, I would want that as well, so.
Okay. You would want fair and impartial jurors?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Nothing further.
Thank
So you have
you.
no questions?
Thank you, sir. You can step out.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Your Honor.
He stepped out of the court.
No motion.
No motion from the defense, Judge.
Number 175 indicates knowledge.
Please have a seat on the end, sir.
All right, thank you. Yes, you can have a seat. They're going to ask you a few questions, and I'd ask you to respond in a little strong voice so we can hear you up here.
Okay,
Good afternoon, sir.
good afternoon.
You indicated earlier this afternoon that you had some information or knowledge about this case from some outside source. Is that correct?
Correct.
Was that from talking to folks or was that from the media?
Talking to my brother. I knew nothing about the case until we came in Monday for jury duty, and I saw the television cameras, like the vans out front. So then they told us to go home and come back yesterday and then today. And I made a phone call to my brother that Monday evening, and I asked him, like, is there something going on down there? He goes, yeah, it's that high-profile case or whatever about a lady that supposedly killed her children, and her husband was overseas serving in the military. That's all I ever heard about it.
Okay. Did your brother talk about any other aspect of the case or about aspect of pertaining to the defendant?
No, he just asked me, did I remember when it happened a few years ago or something? I was like, no, I didn't, because I really don't watch a lot of news.
Okay. Do you recall seeing anything in the print media or TV at all about this case?
No, not really, no.
Okay.
My wife runs our TV, so we watch other stuff, not the news.
So what is going on with Dancing with the Stars, sir?
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. As a result of your conversation with your brother, have you formed any fixed or definite opinion about the defendant's guilt?
No.
Okay. The defendant, like any other person charged with a crime, is presumed innocent of the charges. Can you give this defendant her presumption of innocence despite what your brother told you?
Yes.
Can you hold the state of Florida, the prosecution, to its burden of proving her guilt beyond and to the exclusion of every reasonable doubt by evidence in court?
Yes.
Is there anything about your conversation and what you learned from your brother that would prevent you from being a fair or impartial juror?
No.
Okay. Thank you. Nothing further.
You're welcome.
Any inquiries, sir?
Did your brother express any kind of an opinion to you when he talked to you, or he's just asking you if you remembered it?
That was it, if I remembered it, and I didn't. Yeah.
So he didn't have an opinion and you didn't have one either?
No, no.
Okay. No further questions, thank you.
Okay.
Sir, you can step out.
Okay. Come on, that way.
There's no motion that you're...
No motion.
Number 176 indicates knowledge of the case.
Wait down. There's a seat right there in the front of them.
We're going to ask you a few questions. I ask that you respond.
Okay.
Good afternoon. Earlier this afternoon, you indicated that you had some knowledge or information about this case that you kind of brought with you to court from some outside source. Is that correct?
That is correct.
What was...
Newspapers, the Tampa Tribune specifically, and different news stations.
Okay, was that... Were you exposed to that recently or near the time of the offense, or both?
Both.
Okay.
I read the paper every day, cover to cover.
All right, ma'am. Do you recall the synopsis of the case that the judge provided to you a few minutes ago? When he spoke of the story of the case?
What the charges were?
Not when you read, he kind of read an agreed upon statement of facts that the police responded to the house and...
Yes,
Remember that?
yes.
Okay. First, the judge also discussed with you the presumption of innocence, which means that the defendant is entitled by our Constitution for the jury to have a starting point that she's innocent of the charges. Do you understand that?
Yes, I do.
Do you accept that?
Yes, I do.
That presumption of innocence stays with her until it is overcome by evidence that the state of Florida, the prosecution, presents in open court that would rise to the level of proving her guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. Do you understand and accept that?
I do understand and accept that.
Okay. With that as a backdrop, can you tell us what information about this case you learned that was in any way different from what Judge Battles told you or in addition to what Judge Battles told you? Do you understand my question?
I think I do.
Okay, please.
Really basically what he said, but for some reason, I thought, they said that the bodies were found in the home, is what you said. And I thought I remembered that the son had been found in the garage, and maybe that's considered the home. And I might be misremembering also.
Okay, any other details or anything?
Not really.
Do you recall seeing any type of still photographs or video images of the defendant in any of those broadcasts?
Yes.
What do you recall in that regard?
Like a face shot of her in the newspaper or on the news.
Okay.
And most recently, which I had not seen before, and I just happened to see recently, was the picture of the defendant shaking.
All right.
On the day she was brought in to be arraigned or something.
Okay.
Right at the very beginning. I just saw that recently. I had read about it in the paper, but I hadn't seen it.
Did you draw any impression or conclusion about the defendant's state of mind, her sanity or insanity or competence or incompetence as a result of seeing her in that image that you described I think is what, shaking?
shaking.
Yes. Did you draw any such impression or conclusion about her mental
I
state?
thought maybe she was in shock.
Okay. Have you drawn any conclusion or opinion about the defendant's guilt or innocence as a result of what you've seen in the media?
I have not.
Can you, despite what you've seen and read in the media, give this defendant her presumption of innocence?
I feel like I can, yes.
Okay. Is there any hesitancy or reluctance in your answer?
No.
Okay. Can you hold the state of Florida to its burden of proving the case beyond a reasonable doubt by evidence in court?
Yes.
Is there anything about the information that you've heard or read that would prevent you from being a fair or impartial juror?
No.
Have you formed any opinion or conclusion as to the defendant's sanity or insanity as a result of what you read?
I wouldn't say that I formed an opinion of her sanity or insanity, but I have thought in my mind things like she couldn't be in her right mind. But it's sort of like an off-the-cuff type remark, like how could somebody do that?
I understand. Okay, thank you.
In the right mind.
I understand. Thank you. No further questions.
May Parker.
Good afternoon.
Hi.
Just to get a sense of your source of information, do you remember how often you were tuned in to shows or broadcasts that featured stories about this incident?
On TV, rarely, because I don't watch the news as much as I read the newspaper. And whenever I watch TV, and it doesn't matter what I'm watching on TV, I'm always doing something else. I'm always either reading,
You're a
playing a
multitasker.
game. Right. I don't just watch TV. So it would be, I would maybe miss, it could be right on and I would miss it, or I would just happen to be looking up or walking into the room when something of like that nature would be on.
So it was hit or miss, whether it happened to
Right.
be on.
It would be
in a room
mainly
you
the
were in.
newspaper that I got my information from.
And with respect to the newspaper articles you read, are you a careful reader? Do you like scan the headlines, or do you read the whole article?
I will scan the headlines, and if I'm not real interested, I will maybe just scan the article and keep going.
Were you
I don't read it
interested
word
enough-
for word.
I'm sorry, good.
I wouldn't read it word for word if I'm over it.
Were you interested enough in this incident to read the whole article?
I'm thinking at the beginning, back in 2011, I was interested enough to read the whole thing, but I hadn't been, even to the point where I didn't realize on Monday that jury selection was happening for this case. I didn't know that until someone said something in the auditorium, like, do you think this might be? And I didn't, so I had missed that somehow or another in the paper.
And if I understood you correctly, you, despite what you may have seen on the news or what you may have read in the newspapers, you yourself never formulated a fixed impression of how this case should go or what happened or anything like that?
No.
Okay, and you don't have any opinion about that today as we speak
I don't have opinions,
regarding guilt or innocence
No.
or the exact details or facts of this case?
no.
Okay, so you could be an open
I don't think there was
slate.
enough information in the newspaper to be able to, form an opinion, one way or the other.
Okay, so you'd be able to listen just to the evidence and the witnesses in the trial and formulate an opinion based just on that if you remember this jury?
Yes,
Okay, thank you very much.
you're welcome.
Thank you, ma'am. You may step up.
No motion.
The motion, Judge.
Number 177 indicates hardship and knowledge. questions, I ask you to speak up in your own voice so we can hear you, okay?
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, ma'am. You indicated a few minutes ago that service on this jury for the next few weeks would cause you some hardship. Would you explain?
Definitely, yes.
Okay, tell us about the hardship that would present.
I had been taking care of my father for about last 13 years. He had a stroke, and he died a little bit less than a year ago.
I'm sorry, ma'am.
So I've been trying to keep our house, trying to keep the home going, and it's been a struggle because I only have my own income. Now I don't have Dad's income anymore. So then there was some big expenses. The hot water heater broke, the central heat and air went out. I got behind in a house payment, and I managed to make the property taxes last month. So I mean, if I miss, a lot of work, I'm gonna end up losing the home, and that's what I'm trying not to. Just trying to keep our home.
Do you get compensated by work for jury service?
No, I do not.
Okay. Do you have any other source of income, whether it be savings or investments or family, anything like that?
Nothing, just my job.
Okay. Are you the sole support of yourself then?
Yes, sir, I am.
Do you have other dependents that you support?
No, sir.
The prospect of missing a couple weeks then, would that of income and the financial hardship, would that affect your ability to focus on the case and give your undivided attention if you were selected?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Nothing further. I have a motion.
Questions, Counsel?
No questions, Judge.
Thank you, ma'am. You can step down. She's exiting.
Just trying to show the 177.
No objection.
177 on the motion of the defense without objection from the state. Construction costs. Number 179 is Donna. Sir, we're going to allow the attorneys to ask you a few questions, and please speak up in a strong voice so we can hear you, okay?
Okay. Good afternoon, sir. Earlier this afternoon, you indicated that you had some information or knowledge about this case that you learned from some outside source. Is that correct?
Yes.
What was the source for that information?
Well, on the news and the paper when all of it happened.
Okay. Have you seen anything recently in the news about this case?
Last week, yes.
Did you hear the synopsis or summary of the case that the judge read you and the entire panel a few minutes ago?
Yes.
Okay. And do you recall the judge talking about the presumption of innocence?
Yes.
That the defendant, like anyone else charged with a crime, is presumed innocent, and that's the jury's starting point.
Right.
And did you also hear him talk about the burden of proof? That it's the state's burden of proving her guilt beyond and to the exclusion of every reasonable doubt.
Yes.
With that as a backdrop, can you tell me everything that you recall from the news that was different in any way from what the judge told you, or in addition to what the judge told you? You recall anything?
No, just...
Well, that's fine. If you don't, that's fine. Do you recall seeing any photographic images or video images of the defendant in any of the broadcasts you've seen?
Yes.
What do you recall about that?
She kind of like was withdrawn, didn't really realize what was going on.
Okay. Did you draw any conclusions or impressions about her state of mind or her sanity, her guilt or innocence as a result of seeing that image?
Yes.
What conclusion did you draw?
That there's just no way somebody could do that to their kids.
Okay. Have you formed an impression as to her guilt or innocence as a result of that?
Yes.
What's that impression?
Same thing, that she's guilty of it.
Okay. Is that an impression or opinion that you hold strongly?
Yes.
Would that affect your ability to give her the presumption of innocence?
Yes.
Would that prevent you from being a fair and impartial juror?
Yes.
Thank you. Nothing further.
Questions?
Judge, I have a question.
Thank you, sir. You can step out.
Judge, I need to strike 179 clause.
No objection.
Without objection, on the motion of defense, 179, struck for cause. 181 indicates knowledge. Yes, ma'am, you can have a seat. They're going to ask you a few questions. I ask that you respond with a strong voice so we can hear you up here, okay?
Good afternoon, ma'am. You've indicated you have some knowledge or information about this case that you heard from some other source?
Not another source, just in here, and then I heard on the news Monday about them picking jury, but as far as anything else, no.
When you say just in here, do you mean in court?
In the courtroom, what the judge gave us, the specifics that he gave.
Did you ever see anything on TV or in the newspaper about this case or about this incident?
Only they were picking a jury, that's it.
Okay. Have you learned anything about Ms. Schenecker, the defendant, in any of the reports?
No.
Did you see any pictures or video of the defendant about in those reports?
No, sir.
Is there anything about what you saw that would affect your ability to be fair and impartial?
No, sir.
The defendant is presumed innocent in this case. Is there anything about what you saw that would affect your ability to presume it?
No, sir.
Okay. Do you have an opinion as to her guilt or innocence as a result of what you saw?
No, sir.
Okay. Can you hold the state to its burden of proving her guilt beyond and to the exclusion of every reasonable doubt by evidence in court?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you. No further questions.
Questions, sir?
Good afternoon, ma'am. If I understood you correctly, you have no opinion whatsoever on guilt or innocence of Ms. Schenecker as you come here to the courthouse and perhaps might be part of this jury?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you don't have to set anything aside. You have pretty much of a clean slate in your mind so that you can listen to the witnesses and the evidence?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Nothing further. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. You can step out. Yes. Next to the courtroom.
No motion, Your Honor.
No motion.
By my count, Judge, I take it as denied.
All right. Let's step up for a second. What we're going to do is we're going to proceed the following fashion. First, those individuals that are from number, who remain and have not been excused, from number 151 through 181 are going to be brought in first.
Yes, sir.
I'll be giving them instructions to be back here at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. After we dismiss from the courtroom those individuals, we will then bring in the remainder of this third day home. That would be those from number 182 to 250. They will be advised to call the number that they called previously, apparently on their summons, to get notice about today's reporting requirement, to call that after 5 p.m. tomorrow to determine whether they'll be required to return at 9 o'clock Friday morning.
Yes,
The
sir.
2nd of May. That's how we're going to proceed. From a technical standpoint, so there are a lot of things on here, and for the assistance of counsel as we go about the beginning of our general voir dire tomorrow with a panel of what will be 90 individuals at this point. The clerk is going to be working a little extra late and putting together your clean slips. Understood that everyone would retain the number they have for consistency.
Yes, sir.
And because that's just simply the best way to keep it in order. All right, with those arrangements, anything from the state or defense before I bring in number 151 through 181?
No, sir.
All right, bring them in.
All right.
You can go ahead and be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your patience. I'm going to go ahead and talk to you about our schedule tomorrow, then I'm going to send you home, okay? I'll start again by thanking you for that patience and your service. You will be returned tomorrow morning. That will be required, return tomorrow morning. And I'm going to go ahead and set a time to be back, and we know back again means to come to that lobby. You'll be there not later than 9 o'clock a.m., 9 o'clock a.m. And I ask everybody to be on time, give yourself plenty of time coming in so we can be considerate of everyone in the schedule. So we're going to be back at 9 o'clock a.m. Tomorrow so we can continue in the jury selection process. Now, as I send you out, I emphasized it many, many times. I'm going to do it again, those important instructions. And that is, once again, you're not to discuss this case among yourselves. You're not to discuss it with anyone else. You're not to allow anyone to discuss it with you or in your presence. And that includes friends and family members. That is an absolute rule. You're not to read or listen to any reports about this case from any source whatsoever. You're not to do any sort of research, gather information, or communicate about this case through any means, including electronic communications. You're not to speak at all with the attorneys and your witnesses, defendant, in these matters until deliberations are complete. I'll emphasize on the reading or listening. That means no newspapers, television, using a computer, cell phone, the internet, any electronic device, or any other means at all that involves gathering information related to this case with people or places involved. And again, it applies whether you're here in the courthouse, at home, or anywhere else. With those very important instructions, and again, absolute appreciation for your wonderful patience and service, we're going to send you home for the evening. We'll see you at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, please exit this way and make sure you remember to give him your number as you go out.
Okay, we'll now bring in the remainder of what is this third panel. That will be number 182 through 250.
Take us just a moment to get them lined up, Judge.
I understand. You can all be seated. It'll take a moment.
Your line up, Judge.
Okay, we go ahead and bring them in.
All rise.
seated. I'll start every session speaking to you by thanking you for your patience and ask you for continued patience. I'm about to send you home for the evening. And I'm going to be giving you the same instructions in a moment because they're very important. But before that, we're going to discuss the schedule. You're not going to be reporting tomorrow. What we're going to do is have you, as you did for your appearance today, you called a number where there was a recording, and it told you whether to come in today. We're going to have you call that same number after 5 p.m. tomorrow, Thursday after 5 p.m. You will call and you'll receive a message, and it will either tell you to report at 9 o'clock on Friday morning, or it will tell you not to. That'll be the instruction for appearance on Friday morning at 9. Okay? And I told you, and I'll emphasize again, we're dealing with attending to a variety of matters and doing everything we can to be considerate of your time in that process. And so that's why I'm not bringing you back in and having you sit tomorrow. But you're going to need to call that number after 5 p.m. tomorrow to find out about the Friday schedule. And of course, if that message tells you as a group or by specific number to be here Friday, that'll be required. I want to go ahead and make that clear. So Friday morning, 9 o'clock. Now, since we're still in this posture, I'm going to remind you of those very important instructions, and that is not to discuss this case or what we've been doing in this case. You're not to discuss that among yourselves. You're not to discuss it with anyone else. You're not to allow anyone to discuss it with you or in your presence. That includes friends and family members. I want to make it absolutely clear that the case must be tried based upon the evidence presented in this courtroom and in the presence of the attorneys, the judge, and the defendant. So, as I indicated before, you're not to do any sort of research, gather information, or communicate about the case or the people or places involved, including through all those electronic devices. You don't send any messages, no blogging, texting, tweeting, emailing, posting information on a website or chat room or any other means at all. By the same token, you don't disclose your thoughts about this case or ask for advice on how to decide this case. You don't look up any words, names, maps, or anything else that may have anything to do with the case. And you don't read any newspapers, listen to TV, radio, use a computer, cell phone, the internet, any electronic device to get information related to the case or the people or places involved or your jury service. Those are very important instructions, and we'll need to abide strictly by those as we go about these very important proceedings. I want to thank you for your service and for your patience, and now we'll send you home for the evening.
All rise.
Okay, what did you say? Panels actually forward. Council, I know everyone wants to get here early, but the panel will be here at 9 o'clock. I suggest you be here not later than 8:30, or earlier if you wish, so you can get your sheets, because it'll be my intention, once we're all assembled, to literally bring this panel design in and introduce you to the Anything else we need to address or talk about before we adjourn? No, sir.
I think most of you.
All right, see you in the morning.